Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Today we're going to talk about another Marx battery-operated monster. Last season we talked about the Marx Frankenstein robot. Did an episode devoted to that robot. And this season, we have an episode devoted to another classic Marx robot. Let's get him out here. And I don't know how many more seasons we'll have, but we could do Mighty Kong, Spooky Tree. There's different Marx robots we could do, but I think one a season is pretty good. I don't think we want to cover multiple robots in one season. Let's savor it, draw it out, one per season. Here's what we're going to talk about. The Marx battery-operated Yeti. And this is an original box, not a reproduction. There he is. The Marx Yeti Abominable Snowman, battery operated. Sit you right there. Okay, well, I did do a cryptozoology 2-part episode my first season, and I think I talked about this Yeti, or I showed a picture of it or something. I don't know if I actually brought it out. Maybe I did, I don't remember. But we're going to do a deeper dive on it this time. Now, my plan is to upload this video Thanksgiving weekend, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I don't know at this time if I'm going to have an episode on Thanksgiving. I might. If that's the case, then you've already seen it. But my plan is to upload this for the Saturday after Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving weekend. So happy Thanksgiving weekend, happy Black Friday. I almost never go out on Black Friday. Did you? I don't know. I don't plan to. Although, I do have a few things I need to get, so maybe this year I'll go out. I don't know. At this point, it will have already happened, so it's in the past. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I don't really have any special plans for Thanksgiving. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not going to eat any turkey. I might eat some fake turkey, some tofurkey, but no actual turkey. But it's nice just to have a day off. I have 2 days, Thursday, Friday, thank goodness. And it's just nice to have a 4-day weekend. That's good. It's nice to be able to sleep, to not have to wake up at a certain time and go into work, to be able to sleep and shake the bags out of my eyes. And have Billy curl up on the bed next to me. He only does that when I sleep in the daytime. Like if I sleep late on the weekends, he'll come in and curl up on the bed next to me. He doesn't do that weeknights. So that's another incentive to sleep later on the weekend, because that's the only time I can look over and see my little Billy curled up next to me. He doesn't do that Monday through Friday. He only does it on the weekends. So that is one reason I sleep late on weekends. So he'll come in and do that. Well, let's talk about the Yeti. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I'm really big on cryptid monsters, paranormal monsters. Not because I think they're real. When I was younger, I thought they were real. I don't really put much stock in them now. Bigfoot, Yeti, Loch Ness Monster. I wish they were real, but I'm pretty skeptical at this point for a lot of reasons I don't need to go into, but I'm pretty skeptical. But I still have a lot of nostalgia from my childhood and my youth, when I did think it was more likely than not that these creatures were real. It was quite a time in the 70s particularly, but all the way through the 90s, I guess, but particularly in the 70s, we had In Search Of, we had TV specials about Bigfoot, We had all these movies like Boggy Creek and The Mysterious Monsters and Creature from Black Lake, etc., etc., and then those would come on TV. Lots of Bigfoot merchandise, Yeti merchandise, like there's a bionic Bigfoot over there. And this is an important part of my childhood. What's this? Something fell out of it. Let's put that right there. This is The Mysterious Monsters, the novelization of the Chick-Sun Classic Pictures motion picture. That was an important image in my childhood. And I saw this movie first run at the theater. It was quite an experience. I'd never really gone to see a movie that I found frightening. I saw Arnold, which recently came out on Blu-ray. I saw that first run. I saw Theater of Blood, Super Beast. So I saw some horror movies as a little kid. Those were my first experiences seeing a movie outside the house. And but none of those movies affected me the way The Mysterious Monsters did. That scared me. The Mysterious Monsters scared me because I thought it was all real. I thought that really creepy looking Bigfoot in this movie really existed, and it could be outside my house at any time. Now the Yeti in The Mysterious Monsters was cute. I loved him. He was cute. I just wanted to hug him. He was a cute Yeti. He had like reddish hair and a kind of a white mustache. He looked almost like the Lorax. He was digging for roots. And so I liked him. He was a cute Yeti. I did not mind him. But the Bigfoots, oh boy, they were scary. I was scared of those Bigfoots and The Mysterious Monsters. In fact, those might be, to this day, the scariest looking screen Bigfoots of all time, I think, for my money. And when I made my own little Bigfoot movie, The Devil at Lost Creek, I was aiming for Mysterious Monsters territory with the way that creature looked. I was trying to channel my childhood memories of the Mysterious Monsters. It's a shame this movie is not restored, remastered on Blu-ray, like so many other Bigfoot movies have been in recent years. We really need this as a definitive edition on Blu-ray, restored, remastered from the original elements. Come on, whoever owns the rights to this thing, get with it. I want to see a nice version of this before I pass on. I want to see this looking crystal clear. Well, that was an important film for me. But, Bigfoot and Yeti, those were important topics. When I was a kid, they were everywhere. Here's my childhood bionic Bigfoot. And yes, that's his original chest plate. So he was a big deal growing up. I played with him quite a bit. He would be Momo, the Missouri Monster, specifically, instead of Bionic Bigfoot. I often played with him. He would be Bionic Bigfoot with Steve Austin, but he would also be Momo, because that was the local Bigfoot where I lived, and there were no Momo toys. So I would put rubber kneaded erasers that you can mold and shape on his face and do like prosthetics and give him a different face. And then when I did that, he would be Momo. And then if I wanted him to be Bionic Bigfoot, I would take that off and he'd be Bionic Bigfoot again. So he was like an actor in a movie. When he was playing the part of Momo, I would take the little prosthetic I made and stick it on his face, and then he'd be Momo. And then when he was finished playing Momo, then he'd be Bionic Bigfoot again. So there's my childhood Bionic Bigfoot. Come on, stand up. Okay. Very important part of my childhood. I have vivid memories of In Search Of and all those different kinds of programs. One of my favorite movies really unironically, one of my favorite movies is Shriek of the Mutilated. And if you know me, not many people do know me, actually. They know of me. But if you know me, you know that's a very important film for me. It's a notoriously bad movie. But I saw it at a very young age. And I have vivid memories of watching that film. And it was imprinted on me. And just all my life, since childhood, I've loved that movie. And I still do. In that movie, the creature was called a Yeti, even though it's really a Bigfoot. But it was, well, I don't want to spoil anything. It's not really a Bigfoot either. It's something else. But they call it a Yeti. And so that was part of my childhood, that Yeti from that movie. And, Snow Beast, the TV movie, again, it's a Bigfoot, but it's white, it's in the snow, so, it's like a Yeti. Well, I'm just randomly babbling about Yeti memories from childhood for no particular reason. Let's just suffice to say, I was really into the Yeti and Bigfoot as a child, so that's very important to me. And I didn't know anything about this Marx Yeti until I became an adult collector. Until I got Brian Moran's Battery Operated Toys book, but I think I knew about the Yeti before I got that book, I think. But that book had a formative influence on my toy collecting. So very early on, after I started collecting toys, I wanted this Yeti. Even though I had not grown up with it, most sources say this Yeti was made in 1964. I can't verify that, but it seems like everybody says that that's when it was made. So okay, if you say so, sounds good to me, 1964. But I don't know of any source from Marx or a catalog or anything. I haven't been able to independently verify that, but online everybody says 1964, so okay, 1964. Definitely before my time. And I would have loved this as a kid, obviously. I didn't have many battery-operated toys as a kid. It wasn't really my thing. I was from the action figure era, like the Bigfoot here. I was from the posable action figure era. That was my thing. The battery-operated robots and stuff like that, that was previous generation. But I would have liked this just because it was a Yeti. I mean, I would have loved that. I had a little Tomlin Abominable Snowman, Famous Monsters of Legend figure. I still have him. And I loved that figure. So I can just imagine how I would have loved this thing. But I would have tried to play with him like a doll or something. I probably would have broke him. I probably would have snipped his remote control off and then tried to play with him like an action figure. So I probably would have made a mess of him. There was a HBO series called Dream On that had this Yeti in the opening montage. And I think a lot of people, I already knew about it, but I think a lot of people discovered it through that series. I think seeing it in that show, every episode in the opening, I think that helped popularize this toy. And it was one of the first things I wanted to buy when I started collecting I started collecting in 1989, let's say early 90s. I was working for a city cable station, but it wasn't public access, it was city access. It was a municipal station, so the city produced all kinds of talk shows and informational shows and news magazines and stuff like that. So I was working, it was like a little TV station, so I was working for them, shooting and editing video. And we had an Olympic event. It wasn't the Olympics. I forgot what it was called. It was like a preliminary competition for the Olympics. And I had a name, I don't remember. But that was a big deal, and it came to town. And I had all kinds of overtime shooting these Olympic games, pre-Olympic games. I think they're like qualifying games for the Olympics. And there's a lot of international media in town to cover that. And I was part of all that. But I remember my goal, because I could have said, I don't have time. It wasn't required in my job. I don't have to do this. the reason I said, oh, yes, sign me up, I'll cover all these Olympic Games, I'll do all the shooting, not because I thought it'd be good for my career or because I thought I would learn something. No, 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 no. The reason I did it was I wanted to buy a Yeti. So I thought I'm going to get all this overtime and I'm going to maybe accumulate like $1,000 of overtime, and then I'm going to use that money, and that's how I'm going to get a Yeti. So I spent a few weeks covering these Olympic events, all these athletes doing all this stuff for many hours, getting lots of overtime, and I did, get a lump of money, but it still wasn't quite enough. So I hope I'm not conflating something. I had some Nightmare Before Christmas toys, but I think that was, I sold them, but I think I sold them to finance my Marx Spooky Tree. I don't think that was the Yeti, but it might have been. I'll include that. That might have been part of it. I had some Hasbro Nightmare Before Christmas toys when those were going up in value, and I remember I sold them specifically to buy either this Yeti or the tree. I don't remember which. Might have been the tree. But the main bulk of the money that went into the Yeti came from that, I think it was 2 weeks of overtime covering these Olympic Games. Pre-Olympics, whatever they were called. And it was a big deal. It was a great learning experience being around a lot of national media. I had national sports journalists all around me and athletes I'm sure were big names to somebody, but I'm not into sports, so I didn't know who they were. But I was in the middle of all that for a few weeks and got, lots of overtime because that wasn't part of my normal job hours, and went into this Yeti. So that's why I signed up to cover the Olympics, pre-Olympics, and that's the money I used to buy this Yeti. And if it wasn't for this Yeti, I would have said, I got better things to do. I'm too lazy for all that stuff. So this was the motivating factor in working all those overtime hours. And he was like, I don't think he was 1,000. I think it was like 900 at the time. These days, looking at some recent prices, he's, maybe 2,000 and a little more. I think there was one that went for 2,500, and there was one that went for 2,100, and there was one that had a buy it now of 2,200, but it had a best offer accepted. So, around 2,000-ish is about where this lands these days. In the box, not loose. Loose is a different story. But those boxes are rough. Most of them. I think the 2,500 one was nice, but the other two are rough. This box has had some restoration. It was pretty decent before the restoration, but it has undergone some restoration. Now, what should I do? Well, let's talk about the Yeti. Now, if you want to learn about Marx, watch my Frankenstein video, my Frankenstein robot video from last year, and watch my video on the Marx figurines, like the Universal Monsters orange and teal figurines. I did an episode on those. So between those two episodes, I'm telling you everything I can about Marx, the toy company. Just suffice to say, they were a huge toy company for many years. At one point, they were the biggest toy company in the world. They made all kinds of stuff, battery-operated, tin toys, plastic toys, you name it, all kinds of toys. And they were really big in the 50s and 60s particularly. And they made a lot of robots, a lot of battery-operated stuff, including character toys like this Yeti. Now, the Yeti itself. What can we say about the Yeti? Well, the name Abominable Snowman dates back to 1921. It was coined by a journalist named Henry Newman. Henry Newman. He was reporting on an Everest expedition led by Lieutenant Colonel C.K. Howard Berry. And Lieutenant Colonel Berry reported finding footprints from a wild man of the snows his Sherpas in their Tibetan language called it a wild man of the snows, according to Barry. And Newman mistranslated the Tibetan language. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, but the Sherpas apparently called it Meto Kangmi. Meto Kangmi. And it was mistranslated first into dirty snowman or filthy snowman. And then this reporter, Newman, then he actually used some artistic license and said, you know what would sound cooler? Abominable snowman. So he admitted to just sort of making up abominable, the abominable part. He just coined that phrase, that name, because he thought it sounded neat and it would make for a good story. So really it's this journalist, Henry Newman, that came up with that name, Abominable Snowman. It's not really based on anything authentically Tibetan. All through the early 20th century, there were reports, but it didn't really get rolling as a big cultural phenomenon until the 1950s. That was sort of the heyday of Yeti popularity. It was, there was certainly interest in it in the 1920s, thanks to this report about the Abominable Snowman. And there were other reports of snowmen and footprints and so on in the 20s and 30s. But in the 1950s, Eric Shipton attempted to scale Mount Everest. And at 20,000 feet, he and his crew photographed a trail of footprints. And the photo of those footprints, and particularly a close-up of one particular footprint, ignited the public imagination. And that was the thing. It was kind of like the surgeon photo of the Loch Ness Monster and how that made popularity and that creature explode. The photos of that, particularly that photo of that one footprint, it's an iconic photo. That single footprint, I think, has an ice pick next to it. That photo ignited the public imagination, and that started Yeti fever in the 1950s. And then you had this explosion of pop culture references to the Abominable Snowman, all these movies like Man Beast, The Snow Creature, the Hammer films, Abominable Snowman. Probably the best cryptid movie ever made. Certainly the best Abominable Snowman movie ever made. And many other films and books and all kinds of pop culture stuff in the 1950s. That was Yeti fever. Like the 70s were Bigfoot fever, the 50s were Yeti fever. And that leads into the 60s with things like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Abominable Snow Monster. That was the tail end of that 50s Yeti fad. The Yeti popularity ignited in the 50s, but then it continued into the 60s, and then it got more, there was more fuel poured on it because now we had Bigfoot in the late 50s catching on in the United States, and that carried it through the 60s until we had the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film that just blew it all up again. And then in the 70s, you've got Legend of Boggy Creek and all the documentaries and everything just fueling the fire even more. And then later in the 70s, you got Bionic Bigfoot. So every few years, when the fad might kind of die down a little bit, something comes along to reignite it. So we had like a 30-year period or better, 50s, 60s, 70s of this Bigfoot Yeti popularity that just kept reigniting and reigniting and reigniting. Every time it started to subside, something would happen to pump it up again. And this toy, it's not just a toy, it's part of that pop culture phenomenon that really goes back to the 20s, to the 1921, when the name Abominable Snowman first became popular. I can only imagine back then, in a simpler, perhaps less cynical, less aware time, no internet, no social media. It was easier to believe in fantastical things. It was easier to believe that in remote parts of the world, strange creatures could exist. The world had not been mapped by satellite. You couldn't go to Google Maps and zoom in to any point on the Earth. Just a few days ago, I was using Google Maps to look at Loch Ness. Man, I was driving down the roads on my computer, driving down the roads along the loch, and I'd stop whenever there'd be a clearing in the trees, and I'd look at the loch through the trees, and I was looking at the different observation posts, and then I would zoom up like Superman into the sky, and then look down on the loch. But I had a nice little evening touring. I went to like the town near Loch Ness, like the little shops and stuff, and on my computer, and like the Loch Ness Hotel, the information center. And so that's what you can do at home on your computer. You can go to all these streets and these buildings, and then even looking through the trees. And at one point, you could get out on the loch. I think that's been shut down, but you could, like, as if you were in a boat or something, you could get out on the loch through Google Maps and search around. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think they shut that down for some reason. But so when you have that capability at your fingertips, when someone in Missouri can get on their computer and tour around Loch Ness, it's hard to have any mystery in the world. I remember before I visited Boggy Creek, I did the same thing. I went through Google Maps, and I went to the road and went over the bridge that has the Boggy Creek sign. Before I did it in real life, I did it through Google Maps and paused and looked at the sign. And I went like aerial view and looked all through the creek and saw how close it was to civilization. It's, closer than you might think. It's a remote. Once you're there, you can say, okay, yeah, I get how this is a remote area. But when you're looking at it on a computer, it looks like, boy, there's just people right there. How can it be so remote? It doesn't seem like it is. But when you're there, it's one thing looking at a computer. When you're there, you realize, yeah, okay, I can see, theoretically something strange could live here and be unknown and be hidden. At least, in terms of the remoteness of the location. Now, I can imagine someone tuning into this episode and saying, I thought I was going to see a Marx Yeti, and this is just this guy babbling. What is all this? What kind of a channel is this? That's what we do here. I sit here and I babble, and then I finally show you the toy. But I'm just saying, it's a lot harder to believe in mystery when everything is there at your fingertips. Like this information I just gave you about the Yeti. I read all kinds of other things. I just distilled it down to just those 2 little bullet points. But you can go online and look up Tibetan beliefs and Tibetan religion and mythology and see the roots of what became our Western idea of the Yeti. And you can scrutinize all these photos, and it's pretty obvious when you look at them. Most of them are bear tracks, including that famous photo with the ice pick. It's a bear track. It's it's an overstep where you see the top half is the bear's front paw, and then his hind paw steps into it, and you can even see the outline where the edge of the rear foot is. You can see exactly where it overlaps. It's pretty clear. It's, in this digital age when you can see things in such detail, it just takes the mystery out. Instead of seeing a grainy image in a documentary in the 1970s or in a book like this book. That's why I put this little marker here. That photo is in this book. This is such a stiff spine, I don't want to mess it up, but that's I need to adjust the position of this camera. That is the famous photo there. Got a lot of shadow. I think, oh, it's because of this. There we go. There we go. I don't want to open this book too wide. I don't want to break the spine. But that's the photo. So that sets the stage. That's all the... We're not just looking at a piece of metal and fur and paper and whatever. We're looking at all the stuff I just told you. This is just an object. It wouldn't mean anything if not for all the stuff I just told you. The historical stuff, the cultural stuff, the personal stuff, what it means to me, what it means to the world. That's why it's worth sitting here and going through the trouble of setting up with these lights and dealing with these cameras and editing this and doing all that. And why it's worth spending $2,000 to buy one is because of all that stuff I just told you. So without sitting here for half an hour babbling about all of that, there's no point in looking at this. That's my philosophy. If you just look at this, then that's empty. It's frivolous. You gotta go through that path to get to this. And then it means something to me. Maybe not to you. Okay, let's take this off. All right, let's look at this box. Now, really, the only thing that was restored was just a little crack. All of these Yeti boxes have a stress point, I've noticed. Right down here, several boxes I've seen, right in the same place, it develops a split for some reason. Well, I think I know why, and we'll see in a minute. I think it's because of the insert. But they develop a stress point right here. And they split, and this one did that. So that's the only reason. You can't see where it is. They did a good job with the restoration. That's really the only thing that I had done. I just wanted to fix that. That's a beautiful image. Isn't he cute? I gotta be very careful with this box. Well, let's put him over here. He grunts and walks. He raises arms and shrieks. There's lots of typos on these Marx boxes. He raises arms and shrieks. One of the many Marx toys. Do you have all of them? And he's made in Japan. All right, so here is, I hope this doesn't fall apart on me. Here he is with all of his inserts. Let's take this out. I'm leaning him over because I don't want these things to fall out. But you see this edge here? How it kind of sticks up? I think that's why so many of these boxes develop a stress point right in that lower third like that. I think it's because of this insert. And I've seen these inserts arranged different ways, but I'm pretty sure the way I have it is the correct way. There is a little piece of cardboard that I have up here above his head that I'm not sure where it goes. I'll take it out in a minute. Maybe it goes between his legs. I'm not sure. And there's nothing really to say about the lower part of the box. It's just brown cardboard. I feel like I need to put this somewhere. Go here. There. Well, let's look at this before we take them out. Now, it didn't come with this little bag. I added that to protect this. This is the story of the Yeti. The storybook of Yeti the Abominable Snowman. Not much to it. Printed in Japan. Unfortunately, it has some insect damage. Luckily, the insects didn't get to the toy itself, but they did nibble on this book. Maybe they satiated themselves with this book and didn't go any further. Let's see what this says. In the past, many explorers from time to time. In the past, many explorers from time to time have reported seeing this hairy monster in remote regions of Himalaya mountains. These reports have kept alive for the past 100 years the legend of the existence of this strange, giant-like creature whose habitat was the icy heights of Himalayas. In 1951, a famed explorer returned with photographs which were supposed to represent footprints of the abominable snowman. These photographs represented the most tangible evidence offered to date of the existence of this giant creature. Based upon the various rumors and reports, the snowman has been described as a huge creature, at least 8 feet tall, half man, half beast, who lived in inaccessible caves in the high and remote regions of the mountains. Did he ever exist? Does he still exist? Was he or is he the last survivor of an empire of prehistoric ape-men who once ruled a larger part of this planet? It still remains to be seen! ! I like how it just creates this feeling of adventure. You can imagine this little kid either reading this or having his parents read it, just getting all psyched up about the adventure he's going to have with this Yeti and suggesting this prehistoric empire. Just imagine the games that just those words conjure up, what kind of a game that the kid might play with this toy. And this is not Frankensteined together. Everything here is the original stuff that came with it. So it's not like I got this little booklet from one source and the inserts from another source. This is all together. This is all original. Now let's take this out. And I don't usually store him in this box. I returned him to the box for this episode, but usually I store him separately so he doesn't damage the box or put stress on the box. That's what happened to my spooky tree. I stored him inside his box, and the toy put stress on the box itself and caused some damage over time, and now I need to have that fixed. It's expensive, which is why I haven't done that yet, unfortunately. I do need to do that. So the insects also got to this little sticker too. They nibbled on that. So luckily you can see it's all very clean. Everything else about it is very clean, crisp. So it was just those little bits of white paper from the storybook and then that sticker. The insects seem to find that appetizing. And after this episode, I'm not going to return him to the box. I'm going to continue to store him separately. This is the piece. I'm not sure where this goes. If anyone owns one of these with all the inserts, where does this little piece go? I don't know if maybe it's between his legs. I'm not sure. And I've seen the inserts in different configurations. I've seen this part over his head. I don't think that makes any sense, over his head. But I don't really know. I mean, that the way you saw it is the way I think it goes together. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone has an unopened factory case of these that they can cut open and pull one out that's fresh from the factory and open it up and see how it all went together. Oh. So here he is in his box. Again, I'm not putting it straight up because he'll just fall out. And then inside he has that insert in there for the back of his feet. They go in there. And again, this plastic is something I put on there. Well, this hasn't been out of that bag in a long, long time. Here is this very lovely remote control with beautiful lithography of this snowy landscape. And that's why I have it in plastic, because this thing gets scratched up very easily, and I did not want this to get scratched up. It's a very, very nice remote control. Most of them are just like a plain plastic or metal box that has all that wonderful artwork on it. Okay, guy, here we go. There's the Yeti. Isn't he cute? Look at that fluffy white guy. He's so cute. He's got a little mustache. It looks like he wears a lot of makeup. There's his feet. His feet have some light scratches because when I bought him, this was stored on top of his feet. So that light, not too bad. I don't even know if you can see him on camera, but his feet does have some scratches because of that, because of the remote control being stored on top of them, which is not the way it's supposed to be stored. And there's some information. I was looking at this online. Manufactured under a license from the Toy Development Center, Inc., made in Japan. And I don't remember if I talked about the Toy Development Center in one of my Marx episodes, but I don't have that information handy, so you can check one of those episodes, and I might have got into it there, but since I don't have that information at my fingertips, I won't get into it here. Has a little Marx label. Look at that brawny guy. He's pretty darn cute. Let's see. You know, I think I might have oversold the scratches on his feet because I don't really see. I'll probably see him on video when I edit this, but really there's nothing there. I think I oversold that. Huh. Well, I think you can tell he's in rather good condition, is he not? And so is the box. He's got all of his inserts. He's got his book. The remote control is in beautiful condition. Okay, so I'm going to attempt do something I don't normally do. I'm going to put batteries in him. And he takes D batteries. I'm equipped with D and C because I didn't know which one he required. So it turns out the instructions say D, although they look kind of thick, but okay, we'll try it. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope I don't break this little piece of plastic or, good grief, do anything else. I'm already having second thoughts. I'm going to take this top off of this table and we'll see if he works. Now, last Halloween, 2022, I had some Telco Motionette. Well, they weren't official Telco. They were like knockoff Telco Motionette wind-up walkers. And I bought them brand new at the store 30 years ago. I tested them when I first bought them, and they worked fine. And I put them in the box and put them away and didn't touch them again until I did that episode. Took them out of the box, put batteries in them. They weren't wind-up. They were battery-operated. And I turned them on, expecting them to start walking and ringing their little bell, making noise, and they didn't work. And when I did the Marx Frankenstein episode last year, I didn't even bother putting batteries in him because he's more delicate. There's a lot to go wrong. There's this rod that controls whether he can bend over or not, and that rod always gets bent or broken, and I wasn't going to risk that. I just knew if I put batteries in him and turned them on, I was going to hear a grinding noise, and that rod was going to bend, and it was just, I wasn't going to risk it. So I didn't even bother putting batteries in him. I wouldn't turn on that Frankenstein unless I took him to a professional who would check him out, maybe lubricate. You can go in through the bottom, and I think you can lubricate some parts and make sure he's safe to operate, because he's probably froze up. And this might be too. I don't know. This doesn't have like that delicate little rod like the Frankenstein does. I think this is a little more robust in the way it's built. I mean, the Frankenstein, the arms go in and out, and it bends over and does all kinds of stuff. This is a little more simple. It moves forward, it raises its arms up, and that makes the mouth open, and he shrieks. He goes, "Aah!" And that's not like I don't think it's like an air valve. That's a mechanical, like something scraping against something to make that sound. I don't think there's any air valve that is going to fail. We'll find out. So you can see he's really cute. I don't want to damage him, but I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to put these batteries in this remote control. I'm going to turn them on, and we're going to find out, does he or does he not work? And if he works, you're going to see him and hear him. And if he doesn't, well, I just hope he doesn't get damaged. Because as a collector, I'm fine. As long as he worked when I got him, that's all I care about. I don't care if he works 20, 30 years later. He worked when I got him. All my Marx toys worked when I got them. Whenever I bought them, I tried them, and yes, they worked good. Then I put them away and never touched them again. Because I'm a min box collector. I don't open stuff. I don't play with stuff. I don't move stuff. I want to keep it the way it was when it was in the store. That's my philosophy. So it's fine if he doesn't work as long as there's nothing broken. If he just kind of froze up, like the lubricant solidifies, he's still in his original state. I'm fine with that. I just don't want anything to break. Okay, so I'm going to cut, and then when we come back, this won't be here. This tabletop, this cloth won't be here, and we'll be ready to see him operate. The black's gone. All right. Now people say, oh, you look like you're going to have a heart attack when you handle these toys. Yeah, I mean, look how nice this is. You can't find one this good. Oh, his metal is showing right there. I've had him a long time. 30 years. I've had this toy 30 years. All right. Yeah, that's normal. That's not. That's the way he's made. Okay. Let's see what happens. All hope is not lost. Welp, let's see here. All right. Well, this is not a Thanksgiving miracle. He's not even whirring or making any sound or anything. So maybe it's this. Maybe it's the wire. There's no corrosion in here. I don't think this is. I'm not sure this has ever been used. Well, I mean, I used it once years ago. See, I would have thought he would like make a whirring sound or grinding sound and just then not move, but he's not even making any sound. So that tells me that maybe something's going on inside of here. Looks like there's a little corrosion right there. Yeah, it's probably this wire. Darn it. Yeah, okay. Just like the telcos, I don't have very good luck with battery-operated toys on this show. Well, that's a shame. I wish I could have shown him walking. Unfortunately, he's not going to do it. He's in beautiful condition, but there's some disconnect somewhere. I've just spent the last half hour trying to figure out why this is not working. I put 2 sets of batteries in them, read the instructions. I tried maybe putting the batteries in different ways, because I've read people online saying that putting the batteries in the way you're supposed to didn't work, and then they switched them around, then it worked. Okay, nothing's working. He's not even making a sound. It's not like his gears or something's running and he's just not moving. There's just no power getting to him. There's just nothing. There's no sound, no vibration, nothing. So we're not going to see him operate, unfortunately. And that's too bad. I mean, I was hoping he would walk across the table and raise his arms and roar. He did it. He did it once. And then when I first got him, and then some years later, I tried him again to see if he still worked, and he did. So I don't know what's wrong now. It's not like his gears are grinding and he's not working. There's just no power at all. There's no sound. There's no mechanical whirring, buzzing. There's no whining, grinding sound. There's no vibration. It's just dead. There's no power, no juice getting into this toy. And there's no corrosion in the remote control. It doesn't look like it's ever been used. So that's not it. It's not like it's a corrosion. I think maybe this old wire could be a problem. There's a couple of spots where the white surface is worn off, but it's not broken. I mean, I can see that the wire's not broken. So I don't know what the problem is. It's sad. I'll let all that build up, just like with the Motionettes last year, all that build up, and it doesn't work. So I think the format I used with the Frankenstein last year is the way to go, to not even make operating it part of the program. Just show it like an action figure, like a toy, talk about it, but don't put batteries in it, and don't try to make it work, because it probably won't. These things are so old. And, the better condition it's in, the less likely it is to work. Because if it's in pristine condition, that means it hasn't been used. And if it hasn't been used, when you don't use these things, they stop working. So when it's a little beat up and it's got gray fur, it's got scratches and wear, it's probably going to work, because it's been used a lot. But when it's all shiny, pristine like this, it's probably only been used a couple times that I used it. So that I made it work. Because I did, when I first got it, I put batteries in it, it worked. Then maybe, 6 years later, I put batteries in it again just to see if it still worked, and it did. And then I haven't, so it's been about 24 or 5 years since I last put batteries in this thing. Well, and that's what happens with these battery-operated toys. When you don't use them, they stop working. But, if you're a collector that doesn't take his toys out of the box, or he doesn't use his toys, then, that's what happens. Oh, well. I don't think I would bother trying to fix him, because that would require opening up his fur and tinkering in there. I don't think I want to do that. I'd rather just leave him as he is. I don't know. If you're like a toy doctor or like a robot doctor, give me your thoughts on this. Like, why do you think he's not working? And do you think it's a easy fix or a difficult fix? And just how much alteration would have to be done to this toy to fix him? Because I'm very wary about opening the fur up and going in there, because he's so nice. I really don't want to mess him up at all. I'd rather he not work than tinker with him and screw him up, and so he doesn't look original anymore. Because he's so nice. Look at that beautiful, beautiful guy. Okay, well, It's deja vu. It's a motion that's all over again. But I hope you got something out of this, even though he didn't walk or scream at you. I hope this wasn't a waste of your time. He doesn't have the big finish at the end. Well, thanks for watching again. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, well, I will be back with another episode soon. Till then, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.